Welcome to day 31 of the federal election campaign. Can someone please take the bronzer away from Pierre Poilievre? Because election day is less than a week away, and at the rate he's going, I'm worried he's genuinely gonna turn into a tangerine. And can I also say, apparently I am not allowed to take a day off to spend Easter with my family. Because when I do, major parties drop costed platforms finally, and JD Vance takes out the Pope. That last one's a joke. Or is it? We're watching you, JD. Anyways, there's a lot to get through for your election roundup here, so let's dive right in. Mark Carney and the Liberal team unveiled their costed election platform on Saturday, one day after advance voting opened. But with 2 full days of advance voting left, which did allow more people to be informed voters than the Conservatives did, because they just unveiled theirs the day after advance voting closed. So anyone who voted in the advance polls on Friday did so without seeing the costed platform from the 2 frontrunner parties in this election. And anyone who voted in the advance polls at all, which was a record 7.3 million people, amazing work everyone, didn't get to see a fully costed Conservative platform. To be clear, that's not on you guys, that is on the parties. Now, the biggest headline to come out of Carney's platform was the amount of spending, most of which he referred to as, quote, investments. More on that in a second. Carney's plan includes $130 billion in new spending and would have Canada running deficits until at least the fiscal year 2028-29. With a $62.3 billion deficit in the upcoming fiscal year, that by the 4th year of his mandate, if he is elected with a government that stays stable that long, would fall down to $47.8 billion. The amount of spending saw some folks pan the Liberal plan, though some of these folks, like Shopify CEO Toby Lutke, were already clearly supporting the Conservatives anyways. And Poilievre said this platform is just more evidence that Canadians can't afford to re-elect the Liberals.
Mr. Carney's spending is even more irresponsible than that of Mr. Trudeau's. That is what you're getting with a 4th Liberal term in office. A reckless plan for debt, decline, costs, and crime.
Meanwhile, Carney and his actual platform claim that he would cut down operational spending and increase investment spending, which he says will generate $500 billion in value over the next 5 years. Carney actually said today that this could result in a surplus if all goes perfectly according to plan, but he didn't put that in the platform because he wanted to be prudent with his figures, but not with his responses to questions at a press conference, apparently. Now, I am not an economist, and we are seeing wildly different takes online about the costing of both of these plans right now, so I'm not going to pontificate on that. But that's sort of the gist of what's being said and how Carney is responding to it. Poilievre, meanwhile, dropped his costed platform today. And while Carney's plan lays out $130 billion in new spending over 4 years, Poilievre's plan promises $110 billion and projects $31 billion in deficits this year. Speaking to reporters today, Poilievre also pledged to chop the deficit by 70% through cutting, quote, bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid to dictators and terrorists. Just like Poilievre criticized Carney's platform, Carney called the Conservative platform a, quote, joke with, quote, phantom numbers.
These numbers are a joke.
Which was a criticism shared by lots of Liberal-leaning folks online too, who claimed that Poilievre's team took some liberties in the projections that they laid out. But again, not my area of expertise, so that is just what's being said, and Poilievre obviously stands behind his platform, which was, like the Liberal plan, costed by the PBO, so do you see why this is hard to break down as someone who is not an economist? Because even the economists seem to be totally disagreeing with each other about whose plan is accurate and whether specifics within each plan are accurate. So just decide who you're going to trust more, I guess, and which economists you trust more. Okay, so what is actually in these things? In terms of bulk alone, the Conservative platform is 30 pages long, and 4 of those pages have no words, just pictures featuring Pierre Poilievre. The Liberal plan is more than double that length. It's 67 pages long and has almost no pictures, just one of Mark Carney on the cover. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but you know, one is definitely a bit more detailed than the other. And a lot of stuff in both of these platforms we already heard on the campaign trail, so I'm not going to try to summarize the entire thing for either of them. But a few things stood out to me in each platform that haven't really been broadly discussed, so I want to highlight them. From Carney's platform, he actually has a section on women's rights and prosperity that talks about a new IVF program that helps fund the treatment so that more Canadians, quote, especially to us LGBTQI+ Canadians can become parents. It also talks about increasing the collection of data to address women's health gaps and ensuring funding for abortion care. So I found this section really interesting. But on the flip side, he also had a section on building AI infrastructure that talks about cutting red tape to make Canada, quote, the best place in the world to build data centers. These are the same data centers that use tons of water and are extremely energy intensive. So in an election campaign where climate has really taken a back seat, this is not so fun to see. It also talks about trying to push for more AI adoption in government, which Carney did mention on the campaign trail too, and I find that a little bit icky given one, how much energy AI takes to use, and two, the degree to which AI screws things up regularly, despite what Silicon Valley keeps trying to tell us. Meanwhile, in Poilievre's platform, he has a section that claims to be about defending, quote, women's safety, mentioning that, quote, male offenders will not be allowed to be housed in women's prisons, which means that trans women would be thrown into men's prison, which is horrifying. But it doesn't stop there. The platform then goes on to state it would, quote, ensure that women's spaces and services remain protected in federal institutions and policy. We could see federal level bathroom bans and more in Canada, which is really concerning, and not only for the rights of trans folks, which you should care about, but for all of us, because these kinds of policies lead to the policing of femininity. If you don't look feminine enough, can you then expect to be harassed for trying to go to the bathroom or use a change room? That's the result of these kinds of policies, and yeah, I hate it. Another thing I found wild about Poilievre's platform is it calls for a referendum to be held before raising federal taxes or introducing new ones. For the record, a referendum is when everyone in the country is asked for their say on an issue, and the last time we looked into having one on the issue of electoral reform, we found out it would cost $300 million. So good luck raising taxes ever, including on the rich, if it'll cost you $300 million every time you try to do it, and you need more than half of Canadians to agree to higher taxes. So inflexible, so restrictive, so ridiculous. There is so much more here, including the fact that both could be way better on climate policy, but Poilievre's platform has some especially egregious levels of climate inaction and outright attacks on existing green programs. But I am going to leave it at that on the platforms for today. The last thing I'll mention just quickly is a few other headlines from the campaign trail over the last few days. A Conservative MP and outspoken ethics critic was threatened with eviction from his taxpayer-subsidized apartment over allegations of unpaid rent. That's according to Global News' reporting. Conservative candidate Joe Tay, the same guy who a now ousted Liberal candidate joked about people collecting a Chinese bounty for, was the target of an election repression operation, according to the Security and Intelligence Threats to Elections Task Force, who also importantly confirmed that this, quote, is not affecting Canada's ability to have a free and fair election, including in this riding. An election worker was reassigned after complaints she was trying to sway voters in the King Vaughan riding to cast a ballot for the Conservative candidate. And finally, Mark Carney dealt with some tinfoil hatty protesters at a campaign stop in Nova Scotia. They kept yelling at him about the World Economic Forum, which is a favorite boogeyman of the Great Reset conspiracy smoothie, which is one that Pierre Poilievre keeps dog whistling, you know, when he talks about eating bugs and stuff. Yeah, that's that one. The Conservatives also reference the conspiracy smoothie in this section of their electoral platform, where they talk about mandatory digital ID systems and central bank digital currencies. Woohoo! Anyways, in response to these hecklers, Carney said this.
It's okay, we'll get to the World Economic Forum in a moment, guys. I'm just getting my, sorry, just waiting, listening for the orders coming. Oh no.
I'm going to leave it there for today's election roundup. I'll see you tomorrow for the latest from the campaign trail, but until then, what do you think of all this?